A watch does one job. It tells you what time it is. Your phone does that job better for free. And yet, somewhere in a private vault right now, there's a watch worth more than most people's houses, worth more than a fleet of supercars, worth, in one case, more than $31 million. Why? What turns a few hundred grams of metal and gears into an object people will fight over in a crowded auction room, phones pressed to their ears, hearts pounding? The answer is never just the watch. It's the story stitched into it. Who wore it? Who built it? How many almost don't exist? Let's count down the 10 most expensive watches ever sold at auction, and the stories that made them priceless. 10. The watch that started the obsession. Patek Philippe 1415 HU, sold 2002, Antiquorum, Geneva. Every gold rush needs a first nugget. For vintage watch collecting, this was it. A platinum Patek Philippe World Time from the late 1930s. One of a tiny handful ever made in that metal. Went under the hammer in Geneva in 2002 and sold to Samsung's chairman for close to 7 million Swiss francs. At the time, it was the highest price ever paid for a watch at auction. Full stop. Nobody had seen anything like it. Watches, until that moment, were tools. Nice tools. Sometimes beautiful ones, but tools. This sale quietly announced something different, that a wristwatch could be treated like a painting, a signal moment. And the whole list that follows exists because of the door this watch kicked open. Rolex Daytona the Unicorn, $5.9 million in 1971. Rolex made Daytonas out of steel and yellow gold. Nobody ordered one in white gold, except, apparently, one person did. For decades, this watch was a rumor. Collectors had heard whispers of a white gold hand-wound Daytona, but nobody could produce one. Then in 2013 it surfaced, owned by an Italian collector who'd stumbled onto it without fully realizing what he held. They called it the Unicorn, because, like the mythical creature, everyone had heard of it and no one had seen it. When its owner finally sold it, donating every cent to a children's charity, the room at Phillips in Geneva erupted. Final price, $5.9 million, nearly double the estimate for a watch that shouldn't technically exist. Patek Philippe Eurasia dial, $7.8 million. Picture this, a live auction held during a global lockdown, with 2,500 bidders logged in from 83 countries and another 10,000 people watching online. No one in the room. Everyone glued to a screen. The star lot was a 1953 Patek Philippe World Time with a hand-painted enamel map of Europe and Asia on its dial, one of only 3 ever made with that exact design. It doubled its pre-sale estimate and sold for $7.8 million, becoming, at that moment, the priciest wristwatch ever sold entirely online. Proof that even in an empty room, obsession finds a way to show up. 7. The map of North America. Patek Philippe Eurasia 2523. Cloisonné North America Dial. Same reference number as the last watch. Same era. Same idea. A world time watch with an enamel map instead of a plain dial. But this one shows North America instead of Eurasia, painted by hand in a technique called cloisonné, where thin gold wire outlines each shape before colored enamel is fired into place. Only a handful of these maps were ever made. When this one crossed the block in Hong Kong, It topped its predecessor by nearly $1 million. A reminder that in this market, rare isn't a fixed value. It keeps climbing. The Gobbi Blue Patek Philippe Eurasia 2523, 2 weeks. That's how long it took the watch world to set one record and break it with a completely different watch. Just 14 days after a steel Patek Philippe stunned Geneva. We'll get to that one. This pink gold world time, with a royal blue enamel dial and double signature from the Milanese retailer Gobbi, sold in Hong Kong for just under $9 million. Its seller had bought it 9 years earlier for a fraction of that. 9 years of patience turned into a small fortune. And a new title, most expensive wristwatch ever sold in Asia. The Director's Watch, FP, $10.8 million. Every name on this list so far has come from a handful of old, storied houses. This one broke the pattern. FP Journe is a modern independent watchmaker. No centuries-old royal warrant, no 50-year waiting list, just one obsessive craftsman and the tiny workshop he built his reputation from. This particular watch, a prototype built early in his career, came out of the personal collection of legendary film director Francis Ford Coppola. When it sold for $10.8 million, it shattered every record ever set by an independent watchmaker or by any watch made in this century. For the first time, a contemporary maker had entered the same financial stratosphere as vintage Patek Philippe and Rolex. The message to the industry was unmistakable. The next legends aren't necessarily old ones. Patek Philippe stainless steel, $17.6 million. Steel sounds cheap. In the 1940s, it was the least prestigious material a luxury watchmaker could use. Gold was where the money went. Patek Philippe made 281 examples of its Eurasia 1518, the world's first mass-produced perpetual calendar chronograph. All but 4 were gold. One of those 4 steel unicorns sold in 2016 for $11.1 million, a record at the time. In late 2025, it came back to auction. Same physical watch. And this time, the bidding lasted over 9 minutes before it finally closed at $17.6 million, nearly 60% higher than 9 years earlier. A watch nobody wanted in steel in 1943 is now worth more than almost anything else Patek Philippe has ever made. Rolex Cosmograph Daytona. Paul Newman, $17.75 million. This is the sale that changed everything for Rolex, and maybe for watch collecting itself. Paul Newman, actor, racer, and reluctant style icon, wore this steel Daytona every day for 15 years. His wife, Joanne Woodward, had it engraved on the back, "Drive carefully me." Newman eventually gave it to his daughter's boyfriend, who quietly kept it in a drawer for decades, never mentioning what he had. When it finally surfaced at auction in New York in 2017, it wasn't just a rare dial variant collectors already prized. It was the actual watch off Paul Newman's actual wrist, with the actual inscription from his wife. It sold for $17.75 million, becoming, at the time, the most expensive wristwatch in history. It remains the most expensive Rolex ever sold. 50 years, 8 complications Patek Philippe Henry Graves. Supercomplication, $24 million Sotheby's. 2014, 2 of the richest men in 1920s America, banker Henry Graves Jr. and car parts magnate James Ward Packard, were locked in a quiet, obsessive rivalry. Whoever could commission the most complicated watch in the world would win bragging rights for a lifetime. Graves won. Patek Philippe spent 8 years building his pocket watch, finishing it in 1933 with 24 separate complications, including a chart of the exact night sky visible from Graves's New York apartment. It held the title of the world's most complicated watch for over 50 years. When it sold at Sotheby's Geneva in 2014, its $24 million price set a new world record, one that would stand for exactly 5 years. The watch that wasn't supposed to exist, Patek Philippe Grandmaster Chime, refers kits the 300 AR 0 now. Patek Philippe makes its most complicated watches in gold, almost never in steel. Steel is for tool watches, not 20 complication masterpieces with 166 moving parts and over 100,000 hours of development behind them, but for the 2019 Only Watch charity auction, where brands donate one-of-a-kind pieces to fund research into Duchenne muscular dystrophy. Patek broke its own rule. One single Grandmaster Chime in steel, the only one that will ever exist. The pre-sale estimate was $250,000 to $300,000. The final hammer price, once fees were added, was $31 million, more than 100 times the low estimate. It remains to this day the most expensive wristwatch ever sold at auction, and every single dollar went to charity. 10 watches. 10 completely different reasons for their price tags. A queen's rival, a movie star's inscription, a director's prototype, a material nobody wanted until suddenly everyone did. None of these watches were bought because they told time better than a $5 quartz from the drugstore. They were bought because a watch, if it's rare enough and carries the right story, stops being an object and becomes a piece of history you can actually hold. And apparently, people will pay just about anything to hold it.
When it gave too many chances to you niggas, I can't let nobody play us. Yeah, I got in my bag when I looked up, ain't seen them but a bunch of haters. No matter how much money we went through, we never let the paper change us.